72 species, 89 languages, one sleepless chamber. The Galactic Council chamber on Viral Prime was a spire of stone and glass, jutting into the stratosphere like a cathedral built for gods who'd grown tired of praying. Each representative floated, hovered, hissed, or slouched in their respective alcoves, as centuries of peace cracked beneath the weight of one shared question. What were they to do about the humans? The central dais shimmered as the aquatic ambassador Turskval, glistening and furious, flopped his tail against the dais, mic in frustration. We summoned the Homo sapiens 7 cycles ago. We begged for an explanation. Instead, they sent this. He pointed one slimy fin toward the figure at the center of the chamber. A human, sitting, calm, legs crossed, not a weapon in sight. He was older than expected, late 50s, perhaps. Trim suit, navy tie, a white handkerchief folded precisely in his lapel. A leather notebook rested on the table before him. No datapads, no translator, just ink and paper, the way his ancestors might have recorded battle orders in some trench 3,000 years ago. He hadn't said a word since arriving, not when the guards scanned him, not when the room shouted and hissed, not when a counselor from the Zegari Dominion threatened to disassemble Earth's crust like cake. He just smiled. "Perhaps we are being played," hissed Counselor Shen, a six-eyed, feathered diplomat from the Rolf Collective. "Perhaps he is not even official. He has Earth seal," another muttered. Turskval slammed the mic again. "Silence. Earth's silence is an act of war. We intercepted one of their weapon nurseries." "A civilian nursery," corrected a robotic voice from the back, which should have prompted a diplomatic rebuttal. Turskval snarled. "Instead, we lost an entire patrol armada 2 days later. No signal, no debris, just vanished." His gills flared in agitation. The human looked up slowly, smiled at Turskval. It wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was kind. He stood. A soft shuffle of his polished black shoes echoed in the chamber, absurdly loud in the tension. "Tea?" he asked, voice smooth as mahogany. The room blinked. Some species translated internally. Others adjusted neural ports. A few recoiled as if he'd fired a weapon. He clarified, polite as a waiter in a storm. "Would anyone like tea while we speak?" Nobody answered. Tension thickened like syrup. He smiled again. "No, quite all right." The notebook opened. He scribbled something. Turskval's voice trembled now. "Identify yourself." He lifted his gaze. "My name is Michael Harlan. I represent Earth's peace delegation." "Peace," rasped a Threxel warlord. "Your response to diplomatic queries was the annihilation of a moonbase. That is not peace. That moonbase housed children," Harlan said softly. "Ours. And your retaliation wiped out 128 ships." "I didn't say we retaliated." He looked down again. "Only that those ships are no longer a concern." Whispers stirred among the chambers. Neural feeds crackled. Whole systems across the Council's network began registering phantom disruptions. Civilian channels, trade routes, fleet positioning just slightly off. An old, withered reptilian from the Krangari Confederacy leaned forward. "You're not here to explain, are you?" Harlan didn't answer. He turned a page in his notebook. His eyes moved slowly, methodically. "I was asked to speak only if absolutely necessary." "And?" Shen pressed. Harlan raised his gaze again. His eyes, pale blue, unthreatening, held a stillness that disturbed even the most hardened of warlords. "We considered your actions," he said at last. "The attack, the silence, the threats. We reviewed, studied, reflected." "And your answer?" He smiled once more. "You attacked our home." Silence dropped like a guillotine. No rage. No flare of vengeance. No spectacle of pride. Just 5 words. And suddenly, no one in the chamber could breathe. One of the insectoid delegates clicked nervously. "That's it." "I'm sorry," Harlan said, gesturing politely. "I thought I was being clear." Turskval slumped backward in his hoverchair. "You're threatening us." "Not at all," Harlan said cheerfully. "I'm informing you." The chamber lights flickered. Counselor Shen's feathers bristled. "What is happening?" A whisper of wind moved through the chamber. Impossible, given its vacuum-sealed environment. Another delegate, a crystalline being with a dozen voices, murmured, I just received a feed disruption. My homeworld's relay went black. Then another voice. Mine too. Our entire internal grid is looping Earth classical music. Harlan tapped his pen lightly against the table. Beethoven, Symphony No. 7, a favorite of Director Ellis. Who is that? Demanded a half-metallic warrior. Harlan looked up slowly. The man who taught us that when cornered, we do not bark. We do not growl. We smile. A dozen chambers shifted. Murmurs spread like a virus. Turskval slammed his flipper on the mic again. This is madness. No, Harlan said. This is memory. And with that, he closed the notebook. I was told to speak only once. I have done so. He sat down again, as if nothing had happened. As if centuries of peace had not just cracked like dry porcelain underfoot. Shen's voice wavered. What do you mean memory? But Harlan didn't respond. His eyes closed briefly, as if meditating or resting. Like a man content after fulfilling a promise. A deep tone thrummed through the floor. One by one, delegates received neural alerts. Small notifications. Each was the same. You have entered condition, memory. No explanation. No override. Just the word. Turskval stared at Harlan. What is condition memory? The human's voice didn't rise. He merely whispered. It means we are no longer the ones watching. A coldness entered the chamber that no atmosphere regulator could dispel. For the first time in galactic history, not one member of the council spoke. They couldn't. They were trying to understand what it meant to be prey. It began with a satellite. Not one built for war, no railguns, no drones, no shields. Just a silent thing orbiting the moons of Neptune, disguised as a scientific observatory. Inside, 32 children floated in artificial gravity, laughing in zero-G, tracing stars with small fingers. They were orphans. The future. Earth's quiet promise to itself that no child would ever again grow up afraid of flags or glass ceilings. The Galactic Patrol called it a strategic target. Their attack was not announced. It came at 4:17 Earth Standard Time, just a sweep of plasma across metal. The satellite went dark. No survivors. No debris. Just gone. No message followed. No declaration of war. Not even denial. Just silence. And Earth did nothing. Not at first. Not publicly. In the city beneath Yellowstone, inside the marble depths of Defense Command, silence also reigned, but it was the kind of silence that listens, that watches, that remembers. Director Ellis stood before the screen as footage played for the 34th time. The image was simple, 32 light dots, then none. He didn't blink. Zoom to quadrant 6. Again. The technician hesitated. Sir, you've. Again. The footage rolled. There was a shimmer, a distortion in one corner of the screen. A flicker of red light just before the destruction. A signature. Ellis nodded. Galactic plasma. Unregistered pattern. Off-protocol sweep. No one else spoke. He turned to the room of analysts, diplomats, strategists. Timeline. 17 minutes after the breach, Earth received a message. No text. Just council encryption. Ellis rubbed the side of his temple. So they're not denying it. They're measuring our delay. A young woman in a gray uniform, Lieutenant Brom, spoke. Should I schedule a broadcast? No, Ellis said. We don't speak first. Another screen flickered on. A fleet schematic. 128 ships of the Alpha Armada. The same fleet that went dark 3 days later. He tapped the screen with a pencil. Don't schedule the broadcast. Schedule history. Across the council chamber, Michael Harlan remained seated. The council had spent another 20 minutes arguing amongst themselves. Some screamed about retaliation. Some wept for their lost patrols. Others pointed claws and pseudopods at one another, wondering who had allowed Earth to grow teeth. None of them noticed Harlan's fingers tapping a rhythm on the notebook's cover. 3 slow, 2 quick. He was remembering the decision room, the gray lighting, the silence after Director Ellis had spoken. "We are not here to warn," Ellis had said. "We are here to end myths. We will not raise our voice. We will let them whisper until it breaks them." "But what if they attack again?" Brum had asked. Ellis had looked her dead in the eye. "They won't. They'll start arguing first." Far beyond Viral Prime, in a quiet zone between stars, the Starling-class vessel Vesper drifted through uncharted space. It had no registry, no call sign. Its exterior was camouflaged in quantum-reflective polymers, invisible to most known scans. Inside, a 6-person crew played poker beneath dim lights. They weren't soldiers. Not officially. One was a janitor. One, a former florist. The others were librarians, cryptographers, a drummer from New Jersey. They were Earth's advance team, Operation Eulogy. And they were already inside 3 alien communication arrays, rewriting protocols in languages the aliens themselves hadn't used in centuries. "New ping," the librarian said, looking up from his cards. The drummer stood. "Another delegate? Looks like it. Species ID, Zeggery. Time to send them a memory." Then they uploaded it. Footage from the satellite before the blast. Children laughing. Names. Ages. Voiceovers from teachers. No threats. Just a file name. You took them. And a timestamp. Inside the chamber, Counselor Shen's feathers shuddered. "I just received something." "So did I," muttered a tentacled diplomat from the Othran Accord. Images. Small humans. Singing. Why are they singing? Harlan didn't move. Didn't blink. "You said nothing for 37 days, Turskval growled. "Is this how you mourn? Is this war?" "No," Harlan said gently. "This is what comes before." Shen looked around nervously. "Before what?" Harlan looked up at the ceiling, as if listening for something distant. "We studied your history," he said. "We learned from your conquests, your diplomacy, your arrogance." He met Shen's gaze. "You assumed we didn't respond because we couldn't." Shen opened his beak, then closed it. "You weren't wrong," Harlan added, smiling softly. "But you weren't right either." In a bunker below the Martian surface, a group of children painted murals on steel walls. They were supervised by 2 caretakers, one an AI designed to look like a grandmother, the other a retired sniper with a prosthetic leg. On a nearby screen, security feeds from 17 alien worlds flickered. Not a single one knew they were being watched. The sniper looked over and said, "They don't understand it, do they?" The AI smiled gently. "They will." She reached out and pointed to the corner of the mural, where a child had painted a star surrounded by eyes. "They always do. Eventually." Back in the chamber, Turskval pressed again. "You claim to be peaceful, yet you sent memories? What are we supposed to do with them?" "Remember," Harlan said. "What is the point?" Harlan tilted his head. "So you'll never forget." The Zeggery delegate stood. "Enough of this. You poisoned our maps. Our ships can't navigate." "Correction," Harlan interjected politely. "We edited your maps." "To what end?" "To give you time to think." The Zeggery paused, trembling. "Think about what?" "Whether the children you killed were worth it." The words hung in the air like smoke. Another delegate, voice trembling, asked, "Why didn't you tell us what we destroyed?" Harlan turned toward him, a hint of grief crossing his features. "Because we knew it wouldn't matter. Not until you started losing things, too." In the outer rim, several colonies were falling silent. Not from explosions. From confusion. Banks froze. Gravity flickered. Artificial moons turned backward. Entire moons became unfamiliar to their own star maps. A rumor was spreading. Earth hadn't retaliated with weapons. They'd retaliated with understanding. They had learned the Council's language, culture, patterns, and rewritten them from within. Not to destroy, to frighten. Back on Viral Prime, a quiet tone pinged in the chamber. Then another, and another. Harlan looked down at his watch, adjusted it slightly. The counselor's personal links all flashed the same message. "You have made mistake. This is the warning you never gave us." The room erupted in panic. "Seal the chamber. Trace the source. Are we under attack? Harlan rose slowly. I should clarify something, he said. Everyone froze. I wasn't sent to negotiate. I was sent to deliver a message. He picked up his notebook. And now that message has been received. Turskval snarled. We can still sanction Earth. We can blockade you. Harlan smiled, closing the notebook. You think this began with your mistake, he said softly. But it began when you assumed silence meant surrender. And then, as if some ancient ritual had completed, a final message flickered across the chamber's main screen. White text on black. There will be no second warning. In the silence that followed, no one noticed that the lights had dimmed slightly, or that the oxygen mixture had changed, or that the recording devices embedded in the walls had shut off 3 minutes ago. Only one being noticed. Harlan. And he looked up with something that wasn't quite pity, but something close. Then he sat down again and said nothing. The chamber was quieter now. No shouts, no threats, just the occasional rustle of feathers, the twitch of mandibles, the subtle grind of tectonic nerves shifting in alien bodies that had never, in all their conquests, tasted fear. Michael Harlan adjusted his cuff. It was a small gesture, absurdly human. Fabric sliding over wrist. But it echoed like thunder in the silence. He looked around the council's horseshoe-shaped amphitheater. Not at anyone in particular. Just a polite gaze. Patient. Like a teacher waiting for the class to realize the test had already begun. A Threxel commander rose, slow and mechanical. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, his armor engraved with kill count glyphs that glowed faintly in time's attention. They blazed now like dying stars. You speak in riddles, the commander said, voice layered with digital undertones. Memory, silence, music. You call this war. Harlan didn't answer at first. He reached into the inner pocket of his suit. The room shifted, guards tensed, wings spread, neural spikes charged. But he only pulled out a handkerchief. He wiped his glasses. Then he said calmly, I'm not a soldier. Turskval snapped. You led a strategic annihilation of 3 major patrol fleets. I didn't say I was unfamiliar with strategy. He folded the handkerchief neatly, slid it back into his pocket. I'm not what you fear, he added. I'm what's left after you've already made your mistake. The Zegari ambassador hissed. Are you admitting you infiltrated us? No, Harlan said. That happened long before me. He opened his notebook again, tapped a single page, and read. Operation Sharon. Phase 3 complete. Asset migration successful. Psychological insertion. Thresholds passed in 12 out of 17 primary cultures. Estimated disintegration time. Within emotional cycle. Shen shuddered. Sharon, that's a myth. Earth's death god. Not a god, Harlan corrected. A ferryman. He doesn't punish. He delivers. Several voices rose at once. Deliver what? Who gave you permission? You dare. Harlan raised one hand. Just one. And the chamber went still again. When you shattered our nursery satellite, he said slowly, you awakened something we hoped to bury. He looked at them. At all of them. You see, we humans have an ancient flaw. We try very hard to be civilized. To be kind. We host your delegates. We adapt to your languages. We invite you to our oceans and serve you fresh brewed teas made from our ancestral roots. He smiled faintly. But when someone kills our children, we remember why we used to be monsters. A tremor passed through the chamber. Not seismic, cultural. The Rolth representative tried to speak, but her translator glitched. Her species had no word for regret. Miles above Viral Prime, beyond the reach of satellites, the orbital relay harmony beacon flickered once, then broadcast a signal that echoed across 3 galaxies. A simple line of code. A seed, really. Harmless. Until it reached the right network. Then it bloomed. And every planetary defense grid connected to the Galactic Council shifted 0.0003 degrees inward. No explosion. No lights. Just a correction. A reminder. The Othran diplomat stood abruptly, mouth tendrils shivering. What is Operation Sharon? Harlan flipped the notebook closed. It's what happens when you make assumptions based on how often we laugh. You think humor makes you powerful, the Threxel commander scoffed. No, Harlan replied. I think it makes you underestimate what's behind the smile. He paused, then stepped forward. Only a single pace, but the weight of it fell like a boot on brittle ice. Let me offer you an example. He turned slightly, addressing the entire chamber. You call us chaotic, unstructured, primitive. You think our wars are messy, our species volatile, our politics unstable. No one objected. Good. He smiled again. That was the performance. At Earth's Defense Command, deep beneath Yellowstone, Director Ellis stood before a wall of data projections. He did not sit. He rarely did. Status, he asked. A technician replied. 17 systems showing memory disruption. 5 already initiated internal purges. 2 of them self-imploded. Ellis nodded. And the council? A second voice, Brahms, answered. Still talking. The diplomat says they're beginning to listen. Ellis's hand curled behind his back. They're not listening. They're calculating. Good. Let them. He turned back to the wall, where a single sentence blinked on repeat. This is not retaliation. This is restraint. Back in the chamber, Shen leaned forward, feathers trembling. You're not at war with us. No, Harlan said. You're at war with yourselves. But why? Because we didn't want to fight your fleets. He gestured casually. We wanted to dismantle your certainty. Silence. He moved again, just a few steps to the center of the dais. Then he crouched, set down the notebook, opened it. Inside was a small holodisk. He tapped it once. Images burst into the air. Not of soldiers, not of war, but of faces. Thousands of them. Humans. Old. Young. Laughing. Studying. Building. Holding hands. We didn't send fleets, Harlan said. We sent teachers. Janitors. Gardeners. Programmers. The Threxel scoffed. Spies. Harlan shrugged. If that's the term you're comfortable with. The holodisk began cycling names, backgrounds, placement dates. Some of the counselors began whispering in horror. One delegate collapsed. Another muttered, "That's my assistant. She's been with our science ministry for 16 years." A second shouted, "My flight director's in there." A third, "My mate." And still the images came. Harlan watched them quietly, then spoke. You wanted to understand humans. But you started too late. On the outer rim, the ship Vesper intercepted a scramble-coded signal. The librarian smiled. They're trying to evacuate. The drummer nodded. Send the next phase. Which one? He held up a teabag. The one labeled subtle, but depressing. Turskval stood again. This is deception. This is infiltration. No, Harlan said, folding his hands. This is preparation. He looked around. We knew a day would come when someone would mistake our softness for surrender. His voice dropped. We just didn't think it'd be you. He straightened his spine. You see, we don't make loud threats. We make long memories. He stepped away from the dais. The holograms disappeared. Only one image remained, an old photograph. A child's drawing of Earth, with stars around it. And the words, written in crayon. We live here. Somewhere, far from the chamber, a fleet admiral opened a sealed archive labeled Do Not Activate. Inside was a map. It didn't show planets. It showed vulnerabilities. Psychological, cultural, ideological. Every council species. Mapped, dotted, predicted. At the bottom of the map, a single handwritten line. We don't invade. We invite. In the council chamber, no one stood now. No one shouted. Some stared at Harlan. Some stared at the floor. Some stared at the memory of their own decisions and realized for the first time that perhaps they had not been the apex species in the room. Harlan looked around once more. Tell me, he asked gently, what do you do when the prey doesn't run? A whisper. A beat of stillness. Then the lights flickered, and a quiet alarm pulsed across every neural link. But it wasn't a warning. It was a name. Sharon. And a question. Would you like to cross? It began with the sound of a voice no longer speaking. Michael Harlan remained seated at the center of the council chamber, the dim lights catching the crease of his suit sleeve, the quiet breath he exhaled as if to remind the room he was still there. The chamber itself, so vast, so holy, so sure of its order, now pulsed with a kind of dread that didn't come from force but from the unknown, from the ache of certainty unmade. Counselor Shen broke first. She leaned forward, feathers disheveled, eyes wide. "Are you going to issue demands?" Harlan looked up slowly, almost surprised. "You still think this is about demands?" Turskval gripped the edge of his hover platform, gills quivering. "You sit there in silence, you sow panic through implication, and you call that diplomacy?" "I never called it anything," Harlan said gently. "I was told to deliver a message. I have." "Then say it," another delegate cried, voice nearly cracking. "Say what it is you've done." He blinked, calm as a Sunday pastor. "We gave you the opportunity to listen. You didn't. So now you will feel." Panic rose. A dozen delegates tried to leave. Doors didn't open. The chamber's power grid flickered again, not violently, just an ambient shift. The air turned fractionally warmer, then cooler. Someone screamed, "No, no, this is intimidation. You're bluffing." Harlan stood. It was not an aggressive movement, not a military one, but the way he rose, smooth, quiet, inevitable, made the entire chamber still. "I am not a soldier," he said again, his voice now carrying, somehow, across the entire spire. "But I am a reflection of what you brought out of us." He walked forward, notebook tucked under one arm, eyes distant, voice soft. "You destroyed a nursery and waited for our warships. You expected fire, flood, fury. You thought humans fight like you do." He turned slowly in place, looking each species in the eye. "But we are not you." The lights dimmed further. "We do not attack our enemies first. We study their friends, their customs, their weaknesses. We watch them sing. We map how they laugh. We infiltrate with kindness." The crystalline delegate fell to her knees. "What have you done?" Harlan's voice was quiet now, intimate, almost reverent. "We set your species against each other. Your hierarchies have collapsed. Your histories were rewritten through your own news feeds. We didn't hack you. We just edited your opinions." He stopped near the center of the dais and looked up at the giant council display, now frozen on a single phrase. "You attacked our home." He touched the screen. It dissolved. A new message appeared. "There is no longer a council." Shen shrieked. "That's not possible. Your emergency systems were created by the Glorith architects. They've been compromised for 11 years, Harlan said. Your translators? Built using Earth neural mapping, acquired through trade. Your ships? You outsourced diagnostics to Terran AI." He turned. There was no war. And then the room changed. The lights didn't flicker, they relented. The walls didn't collapse, they bowed. The council seats began to rotate inward, forming a closed circle, sealing them in. Not physically, psychologically. A final conversation chamber. Harlan placed his notebook at the very center of the room. "This is not conquest," he said. "This is containment." One delegate whispered, "Why? Why trap us?" "Because for 2 centuries we pretended you were more than you are," he replied. "You saw our kindness as compliance, our empathy as ineptitude." He gave a slow, mournful smile. "You mistook restraint for lack of capability." He pointed to the ceiling. A small glowing disk hovered just above them, Earth's only real contribution to the Galactic Council. It was a translation core. For decades, it had sat silently, working in real time, perfecting every nuance, every dialect. No one had questioned its loyalty. Now it flickered and spoke, not in translation, but in raw, unfiltered human voice. Female. Calm. American Midwest accent. They asked for peace. You gave them silence. So we gave you mirrors. Dozens of delegates covered their ears. But the message played on. We did not come to conquer. We came to conclude. A holographic projection emerged. Not of Earth. Not of any fleet. Of history. It showed the satellite, the nursery, the children. Then, one by one, It showed each council delegate's homeworld receiving Earth's gifts: books, music, teachers, algorithms. All smiles, all invitations. And underneath, in every case, a quiet thread of influence. They had never seen it. Until now. "You infiltrated our minds," someone whispered. "No," Harlan said. "We taught you how to betray yourselves." Turskval tried one last time to rally. "There are still species beyond this council. Allies. Military powers." "You misunderstand," Harlan said, turning back toward him. "You were never the threat." The lights went out entirely. Pitch black. Only Harlan's voice remained. "You were the test." Silence. Then a pulse of soft white light. When vision returned, the room had changed again. No more circular platforms. No more separations. Every delegate now stood on equal ground. No rank. No elevation. And Harlan alone remained slightly higher, his platform rising gently as if the chamber itself had chosen its speaker. He looked downward, not with contempt, not even victory, with memory. "I was told to speak only once," he said. He took a slow breath. "But some voices end things." His gaze swept the room one final time. "We are not here to take. We are here to teach you what it feels like to lose certainty." And then the chamber lights blinked once more. One last message, broadcast not across a screen, but directly into every living delegate's neural link. This was not retaliation. This was your lesson. And finally, Harlan spoke, not to them, but to the universe. Quiet, measured. A voice that had no need to raise itself. "The species you underestimated just taught you how empires end." Then the ceiling opened above him, revealing only stars. He stepped into the light and was gone.